Hello and welcome back to Umineko.
Welcome back.
All right, let's hop right into it, right?
Yeah, not much to say.
Yeah, there's not much to say. We left off on a pretty pivotal moment.
Hmm.
All that could be heard was the sound of the rain, the voices from the kids' TV program was watching, and the engrossed Maria's cackling voice. In other words, what greeted them as they returned dumbfounded from that horrible, bizarre scene was the voice of Maria as she rolled around laughing at the TV. Those who returned to the room didn't know how to explain to Maria that her mother was dead, and were trapped by a suffocating silence. That's reminding me of a TikTok.
Oh
It's
no.
so it's like, oh my god, Brian's fish died. Nose goes at who tells him, and like it pans like, and like, oh Brian, you weren't supposed to hear that. No, it's okay, I got it, and it shows him looking in a mirror. Your fish is dead. I did not do that TikTok justice. It was fucking hilarious. God, I saw that TikTok years ago, so I have no fucking clue how I can find it.
Sorry, just the keywords, I guess.
I guess. At first, Maria returned their stares with a dubious look. But when she realized they weren't trying to blame her for anything, she ignored them and again immersed herself in the TV program. The children sat down heavily on the sofa. Their minds were probably blank from their state of shock. Everyone had already cried and mourned so much, but now they just vaguely sat there, their faces seeming to have lost all emotion. Only Cannon had returned to his usual calm expression. However, that probably didn't mean he'd been able to wipe out the shock. Nothing was reflected in his eyes as he stared into empty space. Hideyoshi kept on fidgeting, and every time he remembered that horrible scene, he started muttering about how he couldn't believe it, how it couldn't have been something from this world, how it must have been the work of demons. Every now and then, his muttering produced a question directed at Nanjo, but the latter kept repeating in a calm, doctor-like manner that nothing could be understood by only glancing at the scene, and that until the police arrived, they wouldn't learn anything. However, Nanjo only appeared calm next to Hideyoshi, who simply couldn't suppress his agitation and fear. In fact, Nanjo had also received a huge shock, and his face was a deathly pale. Maybe that atmosphere was why she tried to rise to the challenge and take charge. Natsui appeared to be unchanged from her normal attitude, and she briskly gave directions. I will go see father. Genji, quickly contact the police. Certainly.
I wonder if you would allow me to tag along, Natsuhine-san. Since Kraus-san is gone, the task of aiding father has been left to me.
The taste of aiding father.
Shut up. It would be improper of me to relax here while relying entirely on you.
Natsui was struck speechless by Ava's aggressive move in a situation like this. She seemed to be claiming that, with Kraus dead, the one to take responsibility shouldn't be his wife, but herself, the next highly ranked in the family. Or maybe she hadn't been at all happy when Natsui took command without reference to her in such an extreme situation. However, even Ava's mind had been blank from shock until a moment ago. She only came to her senses after Natsui started giving orders. Just do as you like. Thank God Rosa is dead, because I keep thinking my voice with Natsuhi keeps going back and forth between being Rosa.
No, your Natsuhi voice is a little more
Airy. I try to,
tired.
yeah, I try to make it a bit more like tired sounding, but I'm never sure.
Yeah, I mean, it can be hard to emulate different voices for
Mm-hmm.
different people, but
Especially when I'm
but
not
a lot
doing
of it,
stupid cartoon voices.
I would I was gonna say a lot of it relies on the tone though.
Mm-hmm. Natsui started walking without saying a word more. Ava followed behind her. As they did,
Leave me the fuck alone.
as they did, Kumusama ran into the parlor. She usually wasn't the kind of person to run around, so under normal conditions, most people would have taken her entrance as a sign that something was the matter. But because everyone was still stricken with shock, they hardly even noticed her.
Uh, um, Madam.
If you're looking for Natsui Nei-san, she went to see father. She'll probably be back soon. What happened, Kumaso-san?
You see, in the dining hall there was blood. Blood.
The ears of everyone in the parlor twitched. Everyone thought the same thing. I hope I misheard that. Any container can only hold so much, and no one here would be capable of handling yet another tragedy. So they all thought it. I hope I misheard that. What happened? In the dining hall.
When I went to the dining hall to set up for breakfast. Oh, whoa. Whoa.
Oh, whoa.
It's so hard to keep serious when saying that.
Oh, whoa. The first one to start running was George. His harsh footsteps jogged Hideyoshi and Nanjo to the senses, and they chased after him. Battler and the others followed. They flew into the dining hall one after another, but they didn't find any change that might have caused Kumasawa to go pale. To those who had viewed that gruesome scene in the storehouse, it was a bit of an anticlimax. However, Kumasawa, who had followed them, pointed it out. There really were some traces of blood remaining on the floor. Compared to that terrible scene, it wasn't very impressive. However, if you calmly thought about it, this definitely indicated the loss of a lot of blood. What, that's it? Shit. Damn, that's all? Kumasawa, you got us worked up over nothing. There's another puddle of blood over here. What in the world? It appears that a great deal of time has passed. It's probably safe to say that they were killed here last night. It definitely looks that way. We were talking together in the dining hall until late into the night. After that, someone must have forced their way in. Dad, when did you and Mom slip out of the meeting and go to sleep? It was a little past midnight. So, we should probably assume it happened after that. Are you kidding me? Give me a break.
My lady, please, stay strong.
Just thinking that hell on earth in the storehouse, this is nothing. Really? Good for you. I feel like my head's gonna explode. This is the dining hall, right? Every day, this is where I eat. Complain about school, complain about homework, talk to my dad about my grades. That's what this place is to me.
My lady, it wouldn't be good to remain here any longer. Let's return to the parlor.
I agree. Uncle Hideyoshi, I think this room will be really important to the police. Don't you think it'd be bad if we trampled all over it? Battler proposed this in a slightly firm voice as, along with Cannon, he grabbed the pail and shaking Jessica's shoulders. Everything is just as Battler's son has said. There is nothing more to be gained from remaining in this room. Nanjo spoke while looking at everyone's pale faces. Even though that horrible scene in the storehouse felt like something out of this world, at least then we'd be able to leave, to cut ourselves off from that place and run away. Everyone had shared in that feeling. However, this dining hall was different. It was in the mansion, the main building on this estate, and as Jessica had said, it should have been one of the most calming places even inside the mansion. It was where all the relatives had eaten lunch and dinner yesterday. The shock of seeing this place smeared with blood reminded us of that horrible spectacle in the storehouse, and forced us to accept that we hadn't really been able to run away from the scene of that tragedy. I agree too. The culprit might have left traces in this room. Amateurs like us shouldn't stir this place up. Let's leave quickly. Quickly! Quickly! Hideyoshi also understood the meaning of what Battler had said, and pushed everyone to hurry out of the dining hall. The way we were then, looking at that blood any longer would have been too harsh. Nobody went against his words. Everyone raced each other out of the dining hall. It was almost as though the last person in the room would be trapped in there all alone. Once in the hallway, we lent a hand to Kumasawa, who was still trembling and leaning against the wall, and we all headed back to the parlor together. Then Genji returned. Oh, Genji-san. Were you able to contact the police? As to that, I'm afraid I must apologize. I don't know if it was a failure of the radio or something else that caused it, but... What the... So you couldn't contact the police? Both the phone and the radio failed? My apologies. A boat will be arriving on Monday morning, and I believe we will be able to borrow their communications equipment. Isn't there a boat on this island? Can we just take a little trip out to the Nijima Police Department? Hideyoshi-san, that would be impossible with this weather. At the very least, we can't do anything until the typhoon passes us by. Cross-Summer's boat is being repaired and is not on the island. Therefore, we must wait for the boat coming on Monday. How could this happen? 6 people are dead! The phones and radio aren't working and there's no boat! So until the typhoon passes and the boat comes, in other words, until tomorrow morning, we're gonna be stuck here on this island, unable to contact the police, aren't we? Which means that, not just us, but the criminal who killed everyone is also confined to this island. That certainly follows. The culprit who killed everyone is still here on the island. So the bastard who killed Dad and the others must still be hiding somewhere, unable to escape. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it! I'll catch that bastard. No way I'll hand him over to the police. I'll slice him to bit myself. Ah! That scream fell out of place. I need to get better at doing Jessica's voice.
I think it's sort of Jessica Core.
Just screaming out of nowhere. Maria had finally realized that something odd was happening in the parlor. Rather than noticing something odd, it was probably better to say she felt unhappy and neglected since everyone was getting so excited about something only she didn't know about.
Jessica Oni-chan. Did someone die?
The fucking look on her face! The way she spoke was completely calm. Just as though she was talking about someone who had appeared on a television drama. As though it was someone else's problem. Jessica probably didn't like that. As though trying to say, can't you tell just by looking at me overwhelmed with grief? She flared up at Maria. They all died. Everyone! Everyone! My dad and Battler's parents? Goda-san and Shannon? And even your mother, too! You're an orphan! Stop it, Jessica-chan. You aren't the only one who's sad. Maria-san, I know this will come as a shock, but please listen. Your mother has died.
Mama died?
Yeah, someone killed her. I know it's sad, but stay strong.
How many people died?
6 people! 6 people! Damn it, damn it, damn it! How can anyone do something that cruel? There's no limit to how cruel you can be if you're human. I don't know who it is, but the culprit isn't human. There's no way their blood is red.
The culprit isn't human. It's just that chosen by the...
It's just the fuck chosen by the shit. Huh? Hey, Maria. Did you say something just now? Maria had just said something. But since the words were so remotely separated from the flow and context of the conversation, I couldn't understand them for a second. When I tried to ask her to repeat it again, I was shocked by the sudden sound of Aunt Natsui's loud voice coming from the entrance to the parlor. It looked like Aunt Natsui and Aunt Ava had returned from their trip to see grandfather. You can't contact them even with the radio? We can't use it at a time like this. Why do we even have an emergency radio? My apologies. It was supposed to have a maintenance inspection every year.
Wait, don't you have one of those boat signaling devices that makes a flashing light? Couldn't you use that to contact the next island?
We do not have such equipment. My sincere apologies. Just then, Kumasawa arrived, pushing a serving cart loaded with breakfast. Since there was no way we'd be able to eat in the dining hall, Hideyoshi had ordered her to take it to the parlor. Why are we eating breakfast here? Natsui-san, I'll tell you later. More importantly, Ava, how's father? Judging by the fact that he is not with you, it seems he will not leave his room, not even for a situation like this.
He wasn't there. The room was empty.
Oh, we got a little thingy.
New lore just dropped.
Ushiromiya Kenzo disappeared from his study unnoticed. Kenzo's study has everything from a bed to a toilet to a bathtub, so it is extremely rare for him to go outside. However, he does occasionally go out for a walk on a whim without telling anybody, and his disappearance invariably leads to a huge uproar throughout the house. He usually comes back as soon as he gets hungry. Usually. What the? Where could he have gone at a time like this?
Do you mean to say the master has left his study?
That is correct. I was surprised myself. I wonder when he left his room. Do any of you have an idea? Natsui looked at Genji and Kanon as she said this. Maybe she was trying to ask whether the servants who served directly under the one-winged eagle knew a place he might go. However, it was probably the other way around. Their faces made clear that those who knew Kinzo best realized even more than the rest how impossible it was for him to leave his room.
Even we have no idea.
As you all know, within that study, the master had everything from a place to sleep to a bathroom. I couldn't imagine him leaving that room except for a significant reason. In that case, what? Is it natural to assume that one of those significant reasons came up? We still cannot be certain that's the case. Anyway, he is a fickle person, so it's possible he went for a walk by himself, unaware of the current situation. If that is the case, then we must act in all haste to tell him what has happened and ask for instructions.
That's right. Although I don't want to think about it. It's possible something has happened to him, isn't it?
I'd rather not even consider such a sinister possibility. No one had seen Kinzo since the discovery of those 6 terrible corpses. On top of that, the phones were broken, the radio wouldn't reach anyone, and there was no way to contact the police. Apparently, the typhoon would leave tomorrow and a boat would come. But until then, no one could rely on anyone outside the island, nor could they escape the island. The tragedy had hit everyone so abruptly that they lost all their composure. Everyone felt a heavy silence. Everyone was impatient. Even though they needed to do something, they couldn't think of anything. So some of them held their heads in their arms while others got irritated. Right now, no one could explain what was occurring on this island, Rokkenjima. Thinking about that spec musical you showed me for it was like a fan-made animatic that's like an idea for a musical for Umineko, and they hit me
Yeah.
and they hit you with fucking Encanto.
Yeah.
I'm still not over the fucking whiplash that gave me. Like I was just, wait a fucking second. Balor's singing Encanto.
He would, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, like in character, if it wasn't a musical.
I think he would sing it either. I think he would love Encanto.
Hmm.
An influential family that's known to be a bit weird with a grandparent at the top of it who isn't the best person. He cries at the end of that movie at the idea of Kinzo apologizing.
Yeah,
After that, we ate the
but
breakfast.
Kinzo won't come out of his room.
Yeah, we ate the
He's
breakfast.
busy. He's busy like he's busy being in his room.
Yeah, he's too busy being in his room. You, you go into his room and he has a full-on gamer setup. Like, oh,
Yeah, that's his real secret.
300 hours logged on Overwatch.
That's what the 10 tons of gold got him.
I think he'd be a Soldier 76 main.
I think so too. Yeah, I can see it.
After that, we ate the breakfast Kumasawa-san had made, which felt dry and tasteless. Of course, this was right after something like that had happened. No one felt particularly hungry. However, we understood logically that not eating would weaken our bodies. It would also be rude to Kumasawa-san, who had made the breakfast. Kumasawa-san had taken some unusual Western vegetables, ones that Goda-san had probably ordered for his ultra-elaborate meals, and cooked them in a Japanese style, which made them turn an unpleasant color. As to what Goda-san had been planning to cook with those ingredients, right then I couldn't even imagine it. If I did think about it, I'd be reminded of the way Goda-san died, and a sour taste would fill the inside of my mouth. Everyone pretended to eat for the time being, but of course, no one made much progress. Then we began pooling our knowledge of our current situation. First off, 6 people, which included Uncle Kraus, oh shit, my dad, Kirie-san, Aunt Rosa, Goda-san, and Shannon-chan, had been found in the Rose Garden storehouse as brutally mutilated corpses. And yet, we still couldn't contact the police, since both the phones and the radio were unusable. So, until the typhoon passed, there was nothing we could do. Furthermore, grandfather, whom we might have hoped would be able to show a little leadership in this kind of situation, had disappeared some time ago. Goda-san hadn't made breakfast, so grandfather's stomach must have been empty. And if he had just been taking a casual walk, we should have been able to hear him whining about how hungry he was by now. Despite that, he hadn't appeared. There was more than a small chance that he got caught up in this crime. According to my aunts, on their way back from Kinzo's study, they'd searched for him, calling out on every floor, but were unable to find him. Considering the timing of it all, it's only reasonable to assume that this disappearance had something to do with the crime. We figured Dad and the rest were probably killed in the dining hall, then painstakingly moved to the storehouse. So maybe Grandfather has already been killed, and dragged to some strange place which we simply haven't discovered yet. No one actually said it out loud, but this theory seemed extremely convincing. We will go check that all of the windows and doors are locked. We must also conduct a thorough search for Father. The children must remain in this room. Eva-san and Hideyoshi-san, I'm sorry, but please stay here with the children. I'd like to ask you the same, Dr. Nanjo. I understand. I will wait here. Aunt Natsuhi followed the servants, Genji-san, Kumasawa-san, and Kainan-kun out of the parlor. All that was left was Aunt Eva, Uncle Hideyoshi, Dr. Nanjo, and the 4 of us children, a total of 7 people. Let's all stick together and maybe watch some television while we wait. Though I doubt we'll find anything good in the middle of the day on a Sunday. Uncle Hideyoshi started acting cheerfully, trying to brighten up this gloomy atmosphere.
Good show. Watch it. Watch it. Mm.
They all like turn to look at the TV and it's like a Serbian film or something. Like just some really fucked up horror. Like, oh, Maria, why are you watching this?
On TV. just on television in the middle of a day on a
On
Sunday.
Sunday? Yeah, it's the Human Centipede. What the fuck, Maria? What channel did
I
you
didn't
go
put it
to
past
for
her.
this?
She definitely has unrestricted TV access.
Oh, she'd be an iPad kid for sure.
Oh, I have talked about this many times. She would be an iPad kid. She would watch Skibbity Toilet.
That
She
or
would know everything about the lore.
she would know, or she's a modern day Life Leak kid.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's one of those
Both,
two.
I think. I think she's both, and also she has a special interest in FNAF.
Oh, fuck, you're so right. Oh,
Because of
really?
course she does.
Yeah,
It's
oh,
like
absolutely.
it's I I always hear it's like an autistic stereotype.
It is. It's
It's
the
irresistible to us.
it's the modern day trains.
Hmm. Well,
Like,
trains are also,
yeah,
you
but you
know.
don't hear as much about trains as you do FNAF now.
Mm, yeah,
The
true.
three pillars of autism: trains, FNAF, Sonic.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You want to watch TV, Maria-chan? Then come and watch it with your uncle. Maria was the only one who joined in. Even though Maria had been told of her mother's death, she didn't show the slightest flicker in her emotions. Was it really normal for a 9-year-old girl like Maria to act so much like a very young child? Everyone else's mood failed to improve, and they each sank absent-mindedly into their sofas. Aniki, can I ask you something? What is it? Just now, in the storehouse, you said something about Shannon-chan and a ring. She gave that to her? George Aniki didn't answer, but he hung his head and closed both of his eyes. There could be no clearer response. Quit it, Battler. Figure it out yourself. You're right. Shouldn't have asked. That's right. It was me. Last night, I proposed to her. That was when I gave her the ring. I told her that tomorrow she should put it on whatever finger she wanted as her answer. Guess it was a pretty pretentious thing to say. And that ring had been on the ring finger of Shannon-chan's left hand. Well, several years ago, Shannon came to me asking for advice. About you, George Nissan. I wonder what she could have said. Shannon was always really bad at lying. It was obvious pretty quickly that you were the one she was talking about. She asked whether it'd be okay for her to get close to someone, even though she was only a servant. She asked about what kinds of things boys like, what kinds of clothes she should wear to make them happy, lots of stuff like that. Well, I guess you could say I felt envious hearing her say that. So then she was given an engagement ring. And it all ended right there. Different people value things differently, but being proposed to by a man, well, it can be the high point of your life. So I'm sure Shannon was happy. From the bottom of her heart. Happier than she's ever been since the day of her birth. George Aniki sighed deeply without raising his head. Or maybe tears had risen to his eyes. It seems Shannon was on duty in the guest house last night. But because she was too embarrassed to go back to the guest house with me, she went over to the mansion. Think about how Shannon must have felt. When you receive an engagement ring, then no matter how much warning you've been given beforehand, it's perfectly normal to get so excited that your mind goes blank. She must have been incredibly embarrassed. And then Shannon went to the mansion even though she hadn't been assigned there. Helped Goto-san with his work. And got caught up in this crime. If only I hadn't given her that ring on that day, in that place, Shannon wouldn't have, Sayo wouldn't have been caught up in that crime. Ah! Aniki, that's the one place where you're wrong. It's definitely wrong. So don't cry anymore. Ah! God, I'm so glad I'm getting characters I could just scream as. It makes me feel really good. If you got everyone at home, I want you to scream. Just let out a nice scream. It feels great. Anyway,
Adlerton, let's leave him be.
I hate the smile. I hate the smile. That look. She's she's completely over the fact that almost that all her siblings died, and she's onto the fact that George had the gall to propose to some commoner. After Aunt Ava said that, I stopped talking to him. Misplaced words of comfort might actually do more harm than good. Jessica sat down to Aniki and put an arm around him. Maybe only Jessica, who had known about Aniki and Shannon's love since the beginning, and who had even discussed that relationship with Shannon, could comfort Aniki now. I went over to Aunt Ava and sat down in the opposite sofa.
Adlerton, you really are strong. It looks like you've kept a good hold on yourself.
Well, look, the depth of love becomes the depth of the wound, right? So, after all, it's not like how that old bastard died has anything to do with me. I feel bad about Kirei-san, but, well, she wasn't actually my parents.
My. If that's so, you certainly were crying a lot back there.
Read the fucking room.
Yeah, what the fuck, Ava?
Well, I did think at least that much crying was due as gratitude to the parent who raised me.
The speed of that changeover and that dry tone must have come from Rudolph. That kid would always get violently happy, sad, and angry, but he'd always regain his cool immediately afterwards.
It's nothing like that. I haven't really been able to get over the shock yet. I think the only difference between me and everyone else is the kind of emotions it stirs in me.
What do you mean?
Ooh. We got the fucking mystery solving music up. I've been acting much calmer than George, Aniki, and Jessica. That wasn't because my sadness was any less intense or because I'd already recovered. My sadness was simply getting replaced gradually with a different emotion. Rather than sad, I'd say I'm more pissed off. What bastard did this and where? It's kind of been eating at me that I didn't get a chance to smack him upside the face. That was what I really wanted to do. I couldn't forgive myself for just sat there, overwhelmed with sadness and hugging my knees. Since the time Dad and the others were killed, this island has been covered by the typhoon, which means the bastard responsible for all this is still somewhere on this island.
Yes, that would seem to be the case. I wonder if they're hiding somewhere in that dark forest even now.
I felt like I'd had a very similar conversation with Kirei-san the night before. That's right. After the letter from the person claiming to be Beatrice appeared at the dinner table last night, we talked about whether or not a 19th person actually exists. Aunt Ava, do you think this murder has anything to do with the letter from Beatrice last night?
Ah, that one. Well, I wonder. All of the siblings agreed that the mysterious letter was sent to further complicate the problem of father's inheritance. As to whether that and the case this morning are related, it's impossible to tell at this stage.
Was that letter really given to Maria by some witch called Beatrice?
How could it be? All of it was a farce devised by father, wasn't it? He made Shannon-chan or someone wear the dress from the portrait and trick Maria-chan, right? Isn't that just the kind of overly intricate prank father would pull?
I don't know. I never met him. I don't know if it's canon, but I like to think that Valor has actually never met Kinzo.
He probably has.
I know
But
I know likely he has, but I like to think he just never met him. It's like
No, that's pretty funny.
just every time they when he was younger and Kinzo would actually leave his room, They happen to be in different parts of the island, and they just completely miss each other.
That would be a really funny thing for Badler to argue about, like, if Kinzo is actually a real person,
What?
or if
Everyone
Yaoshiro
here
is just
keeps claiming that
Yaoshi made him
Kinzo is
up.
real, but I have never seen him. That'd be so funny. Oh, fuck. Last night, I talked with Kirei-san about whether Beatrice actually exists. And Kirei-san also said that Beatrice was probably one of the 18 of us.
Isn't that obvious? There's no one else on this island besides us, right? Then there must be someone amongst us who's pretending to be Beatrice.
I don't know, there's a shit ton of forests a 19th person could be. They don't even need to hide, like, deep. They can go, like, a meter into the forest, and boom, no one will ever fucking see them. Like, there's no one else but us on this island. You think?
Obviously, right? Are you saying there could be someone else here other than us? No one's on this island except us. There are only 18 people. So, the one pretending to be Beatrice has to be one of those 18?
Kirei-san denied the existence of a 19th person by spinning the chessboard around. Even though Aunt Eva hadn't constructed an argument that complicated, her opinion at least was the same. Except if that's the case, our situation starts to look very ugly. At the time of Beatrice's letter, the whole thing could be passed off as a prank set up by someone or another. However, if we're assuming there's no 19th person, we can't ignore this anymore. In other words, there's no 19th person, and the whole culprit who killed Dad and the others is also one of the 18, right? So in other words, the person who killed them is one of the people inside this very mansion right now. Aunt Eva smiled meaningfully. It looked like she thought this conclusion should have been obvious from the very beginning.
The culprit carried the bodies of those 6 into the storehouse. But even that was an impressive feat, don't you think? That shutter is always closed and locked, right? In other words, to carry them into the storehouse, the culprit would need to unlock the shutter. Understand?
Is it possible the shutter was left open by mistake that day?
The servant said it's always kept locked. In other words, unless the culprit took the keys from the servant room, there's no way they could have opened the storehouse.
I wonder if the key in the servant room was the only one.
Genji-san said that was the case, which means the culprit knew where that single key was kept and took it. Just now, I watched when Kanon-kun returned the key to the servant room. The wall was packed with keys, and I don't think a novice would know where or what those keys went to. The culprit was miraculously able to find the storehouse key among all of those. Furthermore, even though the key didn't have a tag or anything sticking to it, they knew it was the key to the storehouse behind the rose garden. And that means they also knew where the storehouse was. I'll say it even clearer. The culprit knew the inside of the servant room well.
Her argument was extremely plain and clear. If the bodies had been found thrown somewhere in the bushes of the rose garden, there wouldn't have been much to go on. However, if there was only one key to the storehouse in the servant room, and it was stored with such a large group of keys, a novice would not be able to tell them apart. This means the culprit was someone who went into the servant room a lot and was familiar with the location of the keys. The family members didn't normally go into the servant room, which means that one of the servants is culprit. If there's a murder mystery in a mansion and the rich person starts blaming their staff, the rich person deserved to die.
Yeah, based.
If you're so sure that it's the staff that did the killing, they needed a fucking motive, and the motive is you're a bad boss.
Yeah. To be fair, if I worked for Kinzo, I'd also start stabbing people, maybe.
To be fair, though, Kinzo at least seems to at least try to treat his servants somewhat well.
Yeah, if I worked for this family in general.
Yeah. Even Natsui, it's even Natsui, it's like very clear that like she's taking out her anger and like, I,
That
which
doesn't
again
make it right.
doesn't
They're
make it.
also kids.
Yeah, it doesn't make it right. They're also kids, all that jazz. Like the most malicious one, I think, is Kraus of the family that stays on that island constantly.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but even I can't tell you any more than that. However, I'll tell you one thing.
What's that?
It's reasonable to think that the culprits, are multiple in number and fairly well armed. They'd have to be, wouldn't they? They had to assault the four in the dining room and kill them, drag a total of 6 bodies all the way to the storehouse beyond the rose garden, and arrange for that disgusting makeup and the graffiti on the shutter. There's no way that a single culprit could carry out all of that on their own, right?
It made sense. Does it? Like, does it make sense?
It makes sense that there should be an accomplice.
Yeah, yeah, but like I'm saying, I'm thinking about like the servant. The servant did it line.
Oh.
The butler did it line. I'm thinking. Cause like Cannon's the one that pointed out the weird shit on the shutter. And let's say that Cannon just wasn't in on it. Then that implies that Goda and Kumasawa were the only two in on it. Not Goda, Genji and Kumasawa.
Does it?
Unless there's, I'm trying to think if there's other fucking one. Like I don't think if the butler did it, I don't think they'd lead them directly to the murder shed. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. It probably would have been possible for a single person with enough time, but it would take so incredibly long. It was probably safe to assume that a significant number of people were involved. Phew. So what you're saying is that maybe all the servants were in cahoots.
Please keep it quiet, okay? It wouldn't be right to voice mere speculation like this. And if it really is true, what would you do next? They might not let us leave here alive. This is an opponent who had no trouble killing me, Sun, and the 3 others. Right now, the only ones I can count on to fight with me are the 3 in my family and maybe you, which comes to a total of 4 people, right? We are no better off than they were last night.
She's not even counting Jessica.
Yeah. And maybe Battler.
Yeah, not counting Jessica, Natsui, and maybe counting Battler.
In short, it'd be easy for the culprits to massacre the rest of us.
I've been playing detective with Aunt Eva, trying to expose the person who had killed Dad and the rest before the police did. If only I could cleverly penetrate the culprit's identity and stick the proof in their face. I'd been so sure that, just like in one of those detective movies, the culprit would then give up and surrender. However, the culprit would only surrender if there was no way for them to fight back. The culprits behind the crime on this island were far from helpless, and might even be able to massacre all the remaining people here. And on top of that, this island was a giant closed room, cut off from the outside world by the typhoon. So they had a full day until tomorrow to kill, scheme, and camouflage themselves. In short, it wasn't a safe atmosphere where we could get very far by playing detective. To the contrary, we were at a stage where we had to be scared stiff, since playing detective might displease the culprits, and cause them to commit another mass murder.
Well, it is just a possibility, right? but I can't bring myself to trust the servants yet.
Maybe if you're good to them, you wouldn't have to worry that they would betray you and try to kill you.
And that doesn't mean I only suspect them. Don't you think there might be some mastermind behind all this?
Mastermind? Why do you say that?
It's just a feeling. Think about what the word
Jesus.
servant literally means.
So classist can't even consider that people of lower class can plan their own murder.
Yeah. Wow. It means someone who serves as someone else's arms and legs. Right. It was a bunch of Ushiromiya family members who got killed. So naturally, there must be someone involved who stands to gain from that result.
And obviously, it's the people who rely on them for their income. This was also plain and clear. The Ushiromiya family had been right in the middle of discussions about how to distribute the inheritance when grandfather died. This case followed the standard form of any classic mystery novel. The crime was definitely caused by someone with ties to the Ushiromiya family and who was involved in the inheritance problem. Aunt Eva had probably read a few books in that genre herself. Her argument may have had a few blind assumptions in it, but it was a standard conclusion that anyone might have reached. I think most people would end up suspecting the servants, even if they used different reasoning to get there. Especially the story about the key to the shutter. That made it very easy to suspect that one of the servants would be involved. And that's why I don't like it.
Like it?
You cut out for the first half of that line.
Oh. What do you mean you don't like it?
Nah, I'm just talking to myself. I tried to dodge her question by joking, but I couldn't erase the sense of unease welling up inside me. After all, her conclusion was such an easy one to reach. A conclusion that anyone could reach. I just couldn't be satisfied with that. If I tried spinning the chessboard around like I'd learned from Kirei-san, this is exactly why a servant couldn't possibly be the culprit. If the servants really were the culprit, they wouldn't hide the bodies in a place connected to themselves. Why on earth would they use the Rose Garden shed if they were the ones in charge of the key that could unlock it? The police would probably immediately pursue whoever had been in control of that key. It was even possible that some other facts might come to light as a result. The more we think of the servants as the culprits, the less reason they had to carry the bodies into the storehouse. But what if they knew we think that and put the corpses in the storehouse for that very reason? No, that's completely impossible. When the police come and inspect the scene of the crime, they'll probably be able to cover many things. No matter how carefully the culprits carried out that murder, some traces will definitely be found. In other words, they had everything to lose and nothing to gain. If you think about it this way and look at this murder game from the culprit's side, it's hard to imagine why they'd want to call attention to the corpses. Once the corpses were found, it could result in someone sending a report to the police, or it might make the remaining people more cautious, or it might make the survivors start to search for the culprit. None of these things would make life any easier for the culprit. It's just like the words of the main character's mother in a novel I recently read called the Higurashi no Naku Koro ni. That's... I'm assuming that's the previous When They Cry game.
You would be right.
Yeah. Every story needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Eliminating that beginning is essential for the perfect crime. Right now, we don't know where Grandfather is. We don't know if he's already become a victim or if he's one of the culprits. But this state of confusion must be beneficial to the killer. The culprit has absolutely nothing to gain by showing us the bodies in such an obvious way and making us all realize there's been a murder. In fact, this is the perfect place to spin the chessboard around. In other words, showing us the corpses in such a flashy way must be the culprit's goal in and of itself. So at the very least, to the culprit, the appearance of 6 corpses there meant more than the deaths themselves. In the other words, the culprit wanted this murder on display. To whom? To us. This is a message. The culprit's trying to shove something in our faces. I don't know what it is. At this point in time, this vulgar mass murder isn't making me feel anything except a malice directed towards all of us. Malice towards all of us. Is it? Each one of the survivors has some kind of connection to one of the 6 victims. Uncle Krause's death brought Jessica the grief of losing a family member. The deaths of Dad and Kirei-san brought me sorrow, while Aunt Rosa's death brought Maria sorrow. Goto-san's death probably shocked his fellow servants, and Shana-chan's death brought grief both to Jotanki, who had proposed to her, and Kenan-kun, who had loved her like an older sister. Everyone now on this island had received an equal amount of sadness. Aunt Ava was sure that the servants were in cahoots, but then how could you explain the deaths of Goto-san and Shana-chan? At any rate, by this argument, the grief caused by the 6 deaths hit everyone but Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi. Even Aunt Ava, who had directed suspicion of the servants and acted as though she herself was beyond suspicion, could not be ruled out as a suspect. In the first place, she was able to argue that the servants were suspicious by focusing on the shutter's key. But if you look at it from a perspective of motive and who would gain, Aunt Ava's name rises to the top of the list.
I love that Badler just understands that Ava doesn't care about her siblings.
Oh, absolutely. There's one thing I know, and it's that Ava doesn't care about life.
I know what you're thinking, Badler-kun.
Huh? Oh no. Please don't tell anybody about how my head's so full of obscene stuff.
I'm the one who's going to gain the most from these murders. Since I'm going to be suspected anyway, I might as well get it out in the open.
So you know. Like, Badler pulls out a gun. Like, where the fuck did you get that?
It's especially funny in Japan.
Yeah, like, what the fuck? Pulls out a gun, aims it directly at Ava. Whoa, whoa!
Yeah, where would he keep that too?
I tried to dodge the issue by joking around, but apparently it didn't work.
The inheritance will be divided into as many parts as there are siblings. But right now, I'm the only one of the 4 left. All of the assets of the Yoshiromiya family will become mine.
What Umineko always does is reminds me of a level in Hitman 3. Like,
Okay.
there is, in a level, your target faked her death, for one reason or another. It's like a rich people bullshit. And is then, like, revealing to her family that she isn't dead and all that. And then, her brother is found dead by a parent. A parent unaliving. I'm gonna need to cut that out. A parent unaliving. And you, as Agent 47, can full on, like, solve the mystery if you wanted to. It's a good level. The Hitman games
Sounds
rule.
pretty cool.
If Uncle Hideyoshi heard you, he'd say, "Could you give it a rest? It's not funny."
I'm sorry. I was just fooling around, since I'm going to be suspected anyway, no matter how much I try to smooth it over. That's why, from my point of view, this murder might have been designed to cast suspicion on me. Unfortunately, my alibi for last night is weak.
Could you tell me a bit more about last night?
As you know, the discussion between the siblings of how to slice up and eat the inheritance continued until late in the night. But I don't know how late it lasted. My husband and I had woken up early that morning. We were so sleepy, and a little past midnight, they let us go. We then returned to the guest house and rested there.
Can anyone other than Uncle Hideyoshi prove that? No, wait, it's not like I suspect you or anything, okay?
Oh, are you sure about that? I don't know if it counts as proof, but when we returned to the guest house, we were greeted by Genji-san, who asked if we needed a towel.
God, wanna know what I should have had on this entire time?
What?
It feels like that's where they're going, right? Like,
Yeah?
it feels like they're holding guns to each other, like daring one another to make the first move.
Also, I really gotta pee.
All right.
I'll be, gone for a second.
Okay. All right. Now we're back.
I think that should be enough to prove we returned to the guest house a little after midnight. Though, if my theory was correct, the servants would all be in cahoots, and that wouldn't actually make for much of an alibi.
Hey, you got a point there. Guess that means I'm playing detective with the real culprit now, huh?
However, let me say this for my honor's sake. If I was after the inheritance, I'd never commit such a bizarre set of murders.
I'd commit regular murders.
After all, if I just wanted to make them forfeit their rights to the inheritance, it wouldn't matter to me how they died. It'd be much smarter of me to try and make their deaths look like accidents.
You're saying this to the son of two of the victims.
Especially if you're assuming I laid out some careful plan that involved even the servants.
You got a point there. If you're killing someone for personal gain, you definitely shouldn't make it look like a murder.
Exactly. That's why I'm in such a blue mood. The police will probably treat me like I'm the mastermind, and investigate all kinds of things. Not fun at all.
Aunt Ava shrugged with a bitter smile. She was more concerned about the investigation process and not the fact that a lot of her family fucking died. It was just as easy to suspect Aunt Ava as it was to suspect the servants. So, if we spin the chessboard around, does that make it impossible for the culprit to be her, suspicious as she is? However, if that sort of argument always works, then motive can never help us in any way. No, that can't be right. Knowing the motive must give us powerful clues towards knowing the culprit. That's why murderers from all time periods disguise crimes in complicated ways, cleverly preventing their motives from being discovered. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Every time I spin the chessboard around, it keeps flipping from front to back and back to front. Are my thoughts bringing me closer to the truth? Or are they... Aunt Ava didn't want to talk any more than that, so I folded my arms and headed to the window to cool my head a little. As I looked over the parlor, I saw George Aniki and the others gathered talking. It looks like they were talking about the magic circle that had been painted onto the shutter. As Uncle Hideyoshi thought back to the time, he started drawing the shape in the margins of Maria's notebook. I see. Since Maria was second only to grandfather in knowledge of the occult, she might understand what it meant. I think it was probably something like that. There was a mark that looked like a variation of a cross. And then surrounding the circle, all around the perimeter, were these closely packed, strange letters on all four sides of the cross. And in the four corners, there was something written. Cannot wait to see your vocal performance for what's coming up, if what I remember is coming up. It didn't look like the alphabet or something like that. It was what they call ancient characters. And around the top of the circumference, there was a small mark. 5 small circles arranged in a plus sign and straight lines connecting them. Yeah, there definitely was something like that drawn there. Yep, there's no mistaking the shape. I don't understand the thin characters, but the arrangement was nearly the same. Everyone was staring down at the shape, so I stared down at it too. From what I'd heard, this had been painted on the shutter to the storehouse with some material that looked like blood. I see. This sure is unsettling. Grandfather's probably the only one who'd want to draw something this weird. Seriously, where did he go? I want to grab him and ask what the hell this is supposed to mean. Jessica's voice contained impatience and anger. She hadn't gone so far as to say grandfather was the culprit, but she seemed sure that the grandfather knew something about the culprit's background. Of course, if you were searching for a link connecting the Uchinomiya family to the cult, 10 out of 10 people would think of grandfather. Also, to a person who knew nothing of the occult, this strange mark would have no meaning, which meant that this might have been something addressed to grandfather. That's right, and the reason the crime was shown to the survivors was so they'd find this. In that case, where grandfather, the essential recipient of this message, disappeared off to. Does this shape ring any bells? Maria looked at the shape with a serious face. Maybe she was enthusiastic because this was her area of expertise. However, her appearance was that of someone separated from the events at hand, as though this thing hadn't been drawn on the shutter closed around her mother's corpse. My first impression was that the design resembled a German cross. Ah, certainly does have that kind of design. Does it mean it has something to do with Germany? The German cross was originally a cross from a religious order of knights and was supposed to protect pilgrims traveling to sacred places. So, in other words, this magic circle might have some religious meaning? This is starting to sound like gibberish. When I looked over at all of them, preparing to jump into the discussion, something shocked me. Jesus fucking Christ, that's fucking terrifying. Maria was smiling, an eerie and incomprehensible expression on her face. It was almost as if she was making fun of everyone's ignorance. It was an expression I wouldn't have dreamed to find on Maria's face. Jesus. And she laughed. That eerie, jarring laugh was something I didn't want to believe was possible, even though I was looking at it right in front of my eyes. Cannot wait. Ah! Fuck! Forgot about that!
You people aren't even close. Can't you tell just by looking?
Well, everyone. Sorry, I'm also busy being scared out of my wits, actually. I fucking hate this drawing. Maria kept on cackling happily by herself. After a while, that laugh was suddenly and abruptly cut off, but her expression still looked like it belonged to someone completely different from Maria. Can we change? Oh, thank fucking Christ.
This is 7 magic circle of the sun. The characters are written in Hebrew. Give it here.
I'm full on. I was expecting you to do what I sometimes do with George. Like do a complete change in voice. Sure. Maria stole the writing materials from the stunned Hideyoshi's hand. She then started drawing another magic circle with a rustle right next to the one Hideyoshi had drawn.
See? It looks sort of like this, right?
Yes, I was. Maria, incredible. You really do know a lot. Jessica tried to smooth things over by praising Maria. Maybe she wanted to confirm that it was still the Maria we all knew so well. But Maria didn't answer her in any way in particular. Maria began swiftly writing unfamiliar characters in the corner of the shape. When Uncle Hideyoshi and Dr. Nanja saw them, their eyes immediately began to open wide.
Written on the top and bottom and left and right are the names of the angels who preside over wind, fire, earth, and water. Chosun, Arul, Forlock, and Taliahad. And in the 4 corners are the names of the 4 great kings, Ariel, Seraph, Tharshis, and Cherub. Is that what you saw?
Even if they hadn't been able to correctly write what they'd seen, when they were once again shown something identical, it wasn't difficult for them to realize the two were the same. When Maria asked them whether it matched, Uncle Hideyoshi and Dr. Nanjo nodded over and over again.
Not like they'd memorized the characters or anything.
Yeah. There's no mistake, that's it. I'm sure there were the characters that looked like that. How are you able to write something like that? But there was also characters written all around the circumference.
I know. Like this, right?
Maria quickly began to surround the circumference with more Hebrew writing.
It's from Psalms of the Old Testament, the 16th and 17th verses of the 116th Psalm. You must have at least read the Bible, right?
You read the Bible, right?
These bitches haven't even read the Bible.
Haven't even read the fucking Bible. Acting as though knowing this was only common sense, Maria laughed. For a while, everyone, including me, was at a loss for words. A little later, George Anaki returned to his senses and slowly managed to speak. That's incredible, I'm surprised. So what meaning does this magic circle have?
It's a magic circle to borrow the power of the sun. He who wears it as a talisman drawn in gold shall be able to break free from the bonds of any prison and receive the power to gain freedom.
To break free from bonds? And gain freedom? It sounds so deep.
The word bond is not limited in its interpretation to some kind of physical object. Therefore, it does not only hold meaning for people locked up in an actual jail. It can also refer to the release from mental bonds such as ties of obligation and inescapable fate.
Ties of obligation and inescapable fate, you say? It's also pretty deep. But I really don't understand. What does this have to do with those 6 bodies? Far from being released, they were killed and stuffed in a storehouse, weren't they?
It's not like the magic circle was drawn for their sakes. The 6 of them were there for the sake of the magic circle. It is truly pitiable.
What do you mean? What in the world do you mean when you say the 6 of them were for the sake of the magic circle? Maria lifted up her pointing finger and waggled it as if she was making fun of us.
That's written around the circumference. Can't you read it?
No!
Psalms chapter 116 verses 16 and 17. I'll read it for you. The Lord has freed me from my chains. I will offer to you the sacrifice of thanksgiving, and will call on the name of the Lord. See?
See, you say. I've got no idea what you're talking about. You're saying they're human sacrifices. If what Maria had just read aloud was a vital part of the magic circle, then was saying that sacrifices had to be offered in order for this magic circle to be effective. So, human sacrifices had been offered inside the storehouse where the magic circle had been drawn. A heartbeat later, everyone else seemed to reach the same conclusion. Some people were shocked, and others spat out that this was insane as they punched their knees. This was starting to get incredibly disturbing, and we couldn't accept it or understand it. I don't care what kind of magic circles or curses other people believe in, I won't pick a fight with them. But did they really kill Dad and the rest as sacrifices for crap like that? I just couldn't stand that feeling. Compared to this, I preferred it when we were still disgusted by that theory about the fight over the inheritance. As I started getting pissed off with a feeling between anger and sadness, I broke from the circle everyone was in and returned once again to the window. Something had gone insane since yesterday. There was that letter from the witch Beatrice that Maria had read aloud at last night's dinner. Ever since that point, it feels like like this whole mansion and this whole island have been getting more and more firmly locked in inside some kind of bizarre world. That's right. When I think back on it, that letter was an invitation from the witch. The ruler of the nighttime island had invited us inhabitants of the day into another world. The phone and the radio had been interrupted, and the island was shut off by the typhoon. So you really could call this place another world cut off from the real one by now. Yeah. As this island is now, it's perfectly normal for a witch to send us letters and for human sacrifices to be offered up for the sake of magic circles. So what will happen next? Will some weird people wearing goat masks start doing the Bond Festival dance or something? That's hopeless. It's hopeless. I don't get it. The inside of my head's all screwed up, and I don't even know what to think. Anger, sadness, the opposing emotions all swirled up together, and they started to suck me in. Unable to resist, I could do nothing but cover my eyes with my hands and trust to my mind and body as I start getting sucked in. As I started losing heart, I began to recall a memory from when I was small. It was from when I was very young. I had unfortunately seen a scary occult movie on TV, and for a while, I hadn't been able to go to the bathroom by myself. That old bastard gave an exaggerated laugh and said this. Hey, Battler, why do you think they go to all the trouble to make movies like this about demons and the occult and such? It's because they don't exist. Something that ridiculous can be found anywhere on the planet. Because they don't exist, people want to see them and go to a lot of effort making them. That's why those occult movies just make me laugh. If I were forced to choose, I'd say rather than demons and monsters, this year's earnings call on angry wives are 100 million times scarier. I'll go further, okay? From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Sorry. Every time I read that, I think of that. Getting scared is a recreational emotion, something for people who've got room to relax both in their hearts and their lifestyles. They had so much free time, they didn't know what to do with it. So in order to entertain their mind with unusual emotions, people started creating a culture with demons and the occult and stuff. Seriously, why have I been acting so damn thick-headed? It's totally taken in. Don't try to mess with me. I'm sorry I froze up there. This song, the beginning, it sounds exactly like the Mortal Kombat song.
It does.
I was expecting to hear Mortal Kombat! It's just Balor starts throwing hands.
Play Golden Fantasia, I guess.
Don't try to mess with me. This is the human world. I don't give a damn about witches, demons, magic circles, and sacrifices. The human who killed Dad and everyone else is still on this island. That's all there is to it, right? The next person who started speaking to my heart was Kirie-san.
You see, in both chess and shogi, when you reach the very, very last stage of the game, you get closer and closer to cornering your opponent. The number of optimal moves that you could possibly make gets smaller and smaller. Therefore, if you're backing someone against the wall, or if someone's doing the same to you, both players' moves become infinitely easier to read. In other words, when you're completely cornered and you think you have no moves left, that is the moment when it's easiest to read your opponent. However, when a person is forced into a defensive position, they can't help but lose their ability to think clearly, so they aren't able to get their minds around their opponent's moves. That's when you spin the chessboard around.
With all my strength, I slapped my face with those hands. Now my eyes were truly open. When you don't understand
I could hear the smack.
Huh?
I could hear the smack.
Alright, good. I was really hoping. When you don't understand anything and you're completely cornered, just like I am now, isn't that the perfect time to spin the chessboard around? Well, on the defensive, we can't even guess at the culprit's scheme. When we spin it around and look at it that way, just what might we see? First off, at the time the culprit committed the murders, they knew the island was being cut off by the typhoon. Therefore, they should have understood that even if they carried out the murders, they wouldn't be able to get away with early the next morning. In short, the culprit had begun without securing a way to escape. Furthermore, that bastard tossed the corpses in the storehouse, then was even kind enough to say, "Here they are," with that weird bit of graffiti. In other words, since we'd probably find the corpses sooner or later, they wanted to show them to us. If we'd all been dim and hadn't noticed the storage shed, the culprit's goal would not have been achieved, would it? If you think about it this way, that bastard of a culprit? Since this morning, they must have been watching our every move with bated breath. After all, if we hadn't been so kind as to discover what was on the storehouse, all of that hard work and preparation they did last night would have just gone poof. What did the culprit want to make us feel by showing us the corpses in the storehouse? All 6 of the bodies had their faces noticeably destroyed. Was it a grudge? A warning? The defacement of the bodies had occurred after death. So it had been the means by which the culprit had killed. It didn't mean anything to those who had been killed. It did have meaning to those who found the body. The culprit wanted to make it appear that they had been killed so brutally. After thinking this way, I really want to tell that bastard to stop taking me so lightly. Who just danced to that tune? If you're told please be scared, you can't just say, really? Sure thing. When someone tells the great Usuromiya battler the entrance is right here, I'm the kind of guy who will start wanting to sneak in through the window.
What a great line.
The next thing that had me concerned was that so-called magic circle in the shutter. As Maria, who'd shown that her knowledge of the occult rival grandfathers, had recognized, that magic circle was genuine. They must have drawn that thing in pitch-black darkness, taking a lot of time and holding an umbrella in one hand. Isn't that amount of hard work and perfectionism impressive? What purpose would have been worth all that effort? If we were looking for a fan of the occult in this mansion, most likely all of us would naturally suspect Grandfather. Did they want to make us think Grandfather was involved? But if that's all they wanted, they could have just drawn any old scribble that looked like a magic circle. It wasn't like any of us amateurs would be able to tell the difference between a genuine and fake. However, this magic circle was genuine, and furthermore, it had even been written in Hebrew. So this magic circle had a message that could only be understood by someone with knowledge of the occult. A message is a form of communication. By sending it, they were hoping for a reaction. Reaction? For some reason, we couldn't find Grandfather now. I don't know how Grandfather might have spotted the magic circle on the shutter, but did he choose to hide himself in reaction to that? No, was it a trap to make us suspect that Grandfather had participated? You could read it either way. Damn, that's annoying. What kind of reaction was the culprit hoping to get out of us by putting on this occult show? Somehow that felt like the culprit's weak point. The letter from Beatrice that Maria had read aloud during last night's dinner sprang back into my mind. This was a freak who'd ask us to enjoy a battle of wits. Isn't that interesting? This is a battle of wits between us and the witch. Will we be sucked up by her occult game first? Or will we pull off her fake skin first? There's a whole day until the typhoon passes. Why not enjoy ourselves? Fucking ending it there with that sick-ass fade to black.
How much did we get?
An hour 17.
Hmm.
But, like, that's such a perfect ending part, right?
I think we could go a little longer.
You think?
Yeah.
I don't know, that was such a good ending, though. You want to...
We should definitely keep this in the video.
Here, how much later do you want to keep going?
I don't know.
Because do you want to just
Until
film
there's
it?
another natural end. I don't know.
I was gonna ask if you just wanted to film another episode.
Hmm. No, I don't know. I think we can keep going for a little bit.
You think?
Yeah.
All right.
We'll probably have another chapter end soon.
Yeah. But God, that was such a sick end. That was such a sick
I know.
stinger.
I know.
I finally noticed that the inside of the parlor had gone quiet again. Everyone had sunk into their favorite sofas, some deep in thought, some irritated, some acting depressed. Maria was once again enjoying the TV as if she never left it. It looks like she found the commercials more fun than the boring program, and she happily yelled ooh ooh and giggled. I stared at each person's appearance in turn. If there isn't a 19th person, the culprit must be in this room.
The culprit.
I think Maria's the murderer!
She dragged all the bodies to the shed or the garage or whatever.
Right now, Aunt Natsui's searching the mansion with the servants, right? Then we shouldn't say in this room. In this mansion is where the culprit has to be. After all, it's possible Aunt Natsui is behind this. And we still can't deny that one of the servants might be the killer. Anyone could be guilty. Still, Aunt Natsui and the rest are sure taking their time. Of course, it's not a small mansion, but And this taking a little too long just to walk around checking the windows and doors? Just as I was thinking this, Aunt Natsui and the rest had returned. Not one of them was missing. But our relief was short-lived. Fuck, you're right. I'm glad we kept going. I'm glad we get to see this. Everyone looked at Aunt Natsui in shock. The talk I'd had with Aunt Ava had started to creep back into my mind. The possibility that the culprits had enough in numbers or weapons to kill all of those 6 at once. Forgive me if I've startled you. I brought this to be prepared for the worst. After all, that thing in Aunt Natsui's hand was a rifle. At a glance, its silhouette looked a lot like a hunting gun, but it was unusually short and kind of looked like a kid-sized weapon. However, it had a weightiness to it that made it clear it was no kid's toy. Black guns and Kinzo-sans, isn't it? Did you know about it? That's right. I remembered it was in Father's old collection and I managed to find it. Whoa, awesome! Natsui-san, is that thing real? Yes, it's real. It can fire live ammunition. Long ago, Father used it to scare away wild birds.
That takes me back. Where did you find that thing? No matter how much I asked him to let me touch it, he never let me lay even one finger on it.
I wonder why.
Yeah, it's Ava we're talking about.
Yeah, if there's anyone in this family that you cannot trust with a gun, it's Ava.
Yeah.
Oh, grandfather had one of these? I didn't know that.
Long ago, grandfather was really addicted to cowboy films. That generation really liked this kind of rifle.
Is that a Winchester? But I've never seen one that short before.
Ah, I remember, it's that gun! That really takes me back. That's the one Steve McQueen fired off in Wanted, Alive or Dead. Father sure has good taste. It is an item that Master ordered specifically from America long ago. As you can see, it is a working gun, so please don't tell anyone about this.
He doesn't have a gun license.
Of course not, it's Kinzo.
He was quite fond of it right after he managed to acquire it. It seems the workings that ejected the cartridges were more interesting to him than shooting it, and he played around with it back in the forest all the time. Still, it's rather disturbing. Are you sure you should be dragging this out?
This is to prepare for the worst. There's probably more than one offender involved. Furthermore, those horrible people killed 6 of us, including my husband. I have a responsibility to protect everyone until tomorrow in my husband's place. As Natsui-san has said this, she slumped down into one of the sofas and took a deep breath. She'd been trying to find grandfather, as well as check the doors and windows. Since grandfather wasn't with her, she probably still didn't know where he was. I carefully checked all the doors and windows throughout the mansion. However, we must be prepared for anything. Everyone, I think it would be best if we all remained here.
Oh, good point. If everyone's gathered here, then we can all feel more secure by keeping an eye on each other.
What do you mean by that, Ava-san?
Do you like how I make Ava sound really sinister all the time?
I mean, yeah. She is sinister.
Yep. Nothing really. I'm just agreeing with your opinion, aren't I?
Is it? Hold on. Oh, fuck. Oh, God. Oh, shit. Fuck. Hold on. God, this is gonna be a good joke, I promise. Is Ava a 2012 film starring Ethan Hawke? 'Cause she's acting pretty sinister.
It would have been even funnier if I just didn't laugh, but...
You're just like, Eliza, what the fuck are you talking about? Okay. amazing goofs aside. There was a stormy atmosphere between the two of them.
As always.
Yeah, if you think about who was the most suspicious from the inheritance problem standpoint, Aunt Ava was the obvious answer. However, there was no proof that Aunt Natsui was innocent. No, if you view Beatrice's letter as one of Grandfather's complicated pranks and think of this crime as just an extension of that, there's more than enough reason to suspect even Grandfather. Also, Aunt Natsui thought the criminal was on the outside, but Aunt Ava thought the criminal was on the inside. In short, it was the question of whether or not a 19th person existed. Alright, sorry if there was like a weird little cut there. There was a bit of a fuck up on my side. So, we're back. In short, it was the question of whether or not a 19th person exists. That same question has been repeated endlessly since last night's dinner with the letter from the witch who called herself Beatrice. So was the culprit among us,
Holy shit.
or not? And did the witch Beatrice exist, or not? If you assume that something as stupid as a witch can't exist, you're basically saying that one of these relatives here who share a common bloodline is the culprit. If that was too unpleasant, it'd be much more comfortable to simply accept the fairy tale-like character of the witch. A witch? A witch drawing a bizarre magic circle and offering human sacrifices? If I could accept that rubbish, I'd be able to trust all the people in this room. However, damn common sense got in the way. Or, you know, it could be a 19th person that isn't a witch.
Could be.
I kept repeating that witches don't exist. In that case, the culprit must be among us. In the middle of the seemingly endless rain, none of us could break the silence. Okay, and then we'll end there then.
Yeah. See?
I don't know. I still think the battle, like, it's time to play would have been a better, cooler ending. That's how I think.
Aren't you glad we got to see Natsuhi with a gun?
I am glad that we got to see Natsuhi with a gun.
Yeah, there we go.
But, like, can you imagine if one of the episodes of the anime adaptation, like, did that? Like,
Yeah.
they had that climactic, well, I guess it's time to play, and then it went on for a few more minutes.
If only the anime was good.
Oh, is the anime bad?
Oh.
Pretty bad, I guess.
It's... Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to watch it. In the meantime, though, thank you for joining us for another episode of Umineko.
Yeah, this one gets pretty good.
Yeah, this one gets pretty good, and it's only gonna keep getting good till episode 2 starts, and then it's gonna start real slow again.
Well, the rest of the series kind of picks up from here.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you'll join us again later.
Make sure to like and subscribe.
Make sure to like and subscribe and to hit that bell.
Leave
Please.
comments. It's great for engagement.
It's amazing for engagement.